Hi there. If you have a garment that you want to make, but you want to add a little bit of uniqueness in the colors that the fabric is, ice dyeing is a great technique to experiment with on those garments. So today I have a pair of Aeronite pants. This is from So Liberated. I'll be doing this pair here with the gathered bottom, and I have the pattern already cut out with cotton gauze. So this is a heavy cotton gauze fabric, and all of the pieces are pre-cut, so I'm just going to be ice dyeing these and then sewing up the garment once they're all dyed. So if you are going to choose your own pattern, what you'll do is cut out all your pieces after you've pre-washed your fabric. So first pre-wash your fabric and then cut out your pieces, and then you will be ready to do the ice dyeing. And it will depend on your pattern which pieces you actually dye. My pattern here, there's several panels and then there's some pocket pieces that fit inside the pants. And I don't technically need to dye those pieces, but just for the fun of it, I'm gonna dye all the different pieces involved here. And this style of dyeing, where you're dyeing the pieces before you sew them, will mean that when you're sewing them, the fabric or the pattern on the fabric won't match up because the pieces are dyed individually. So if this is a problem for you, if you'd rather them look all the same or have that continuous pattern around, then do the dyeing once you've sewn the pants or once you've sewn your garment completely. You can do the same process after sewing it. I'm gonna try doing it before and experiment and see how that works out. So I have all of my pieces here, cut out, washed, and ready to go. You want to use a natural fiber if you're going to do this process, because ice dyeing, you're using a fiber reactive dye and they work on natural fibers. So that would include linen, cotton, wool, hemp, silk as potential fibers to use. And of course, each of those fibers, there are endless amounts of kinds of fabric that are made from those fibers. So lots of choices you can make, from corduroy to velvet to gauze to chiffon. So lots of opportunity there. Other things you'll need to do ice dyeing on garments are a wash tub. This is just like a water tub with some sort of screen or sieve or colander. I have this thing, I don't actually know what it's technically used for. I use it for ice dyeing because it's great to set your fabric in, pour the ice on top, and then put the dye on top of that to do your ice dyeing. So this is set into a bin, and you want the bin to be deep enough that when the ice melts and the dye transfers through the fabric, it doesn't pool and cause pooling under the fabric that will touch the fabric. You want it deep enough that there's space in between. So those things, obviously your pattern and your pieces, soda ash dye fixer. So this you apply to the fabric and it will help the fabric absorb the dyes more vibrantly and wash fast. You can use rubber bands, string, or relief clamps, which are shapes that you clamp onto the fabric so that the dye doesn't reach that part of the fabric, and it just creates a unique design on the material. You can use the same process that you would do for tie dyeing, for ice dyeing, preparing the fabric to put into your bin. Those kinds of things, like putting the rubber bands on, will just mean that area doesn't get as much dye or any dye at all, so you'll maintain the original color of the fabric, in this case the white. Fiber reactive dye, I have a Dharma fiber reactive dye, and I have links in the description below for all the materials here. You can find that. And I'm doing hot black today because I want to see how this dye splits. Dyes are made up of little particles of many different colors, and when you put the dye in a bin of water, the way that these are intended to be used, that all those particles mix together to create the overall color. So in this case, hot black. And when you do something like ice dyeing, where you're breaking apart the little particles of dye, it ends up being multiple different colors that show up on your fabric. So I'm anticipating some greens, some yellows, maybe some reds, and then some grays and blacks from this. So this will be fun to see the outcome. A measuring cup, I have a 1 cup here, and then a teaspoon for sprinkling the dye powder over your ice. a stir stick. This is just a barbecue fork that I use for dyeing. A pair of gloves, and a dust mask for working with the dyes in the soda ash. When you're working with chemical dyes or natural dyes, I suggest having equipment that is just for dyeing, because you're working with some chemicals, you're working with a lot of different things that you may not know are toxic or not. So having your dust mask on when working with powders, working with things, these are just for dyeing, not for use in the kitchen and with food. We'll just be sure that you're not swapping between toxic and food in your kitchen. So having those separate is really helpful. And I have labels on my things like this where it says dyeing, and I know that's just for dyeing. And then last thing you'll need is some sort of tub of water that will give enough room for your fabric to move around freely in the soda ash mixture. Okay, put your dust mask on before you start with the soda ash. And then I have about 4 gallons of water in my bin here, and you want to do 2 cups of soda ash fixer per gallon. But because I'm using a small amount of fabric, I just wanted the extra movement available. I'm going to do 4 cups of fixer instead of the full 6. So you can kind of fudge the numbers, though it typically is suggested 2 cups per gallon. And you can reuse this tub. You can refresh it with more soda ash and add more pieces to it. So instead of dumping this out when you're done, you can add more soda ash and then continue to use it for other projects. Because you don't actually exhaust the whole thing when you've done one project. And the soda ash takes quite a bit of time to totally dissolve. So you'll stir it until all of the particles on the bottom, you can kind of feel them with your spoon. All of those gritty particles are dissolved. Okay, the soda ash is mixed in, and I'm going to start to put these pieces in. Just kind of press them into the water, try to allow them to absorb all the water. I have some dye on my gloves. And then open them up. So if you have multiple pieces, and when you cut out a pattern, typically you have at least some of them that you have cut to. And so you want to pull those apart so you can get the soda ash to apply to both sides of the fabric. Just make sure everything is loose and moving around, unfolded, uncrumpled. Okay, so this will sit in the soda ash mixture for 15 minutes, and I would suggest stirring it every 3 to 5 because it starts to bunch up, and you want to stir it up to make sure that it touches all the surfaces and applies evenly. Like this video if you enjoy making things, because it'll help me make more and better videos. Okay, it has been 15 minutes and now we're ready to remove our fabric from the soda ash bath. So grab some sort of container that you can set the damp material in, and let's wring them out and bring them to our table. Okay, so go ahead and reach in and grab a couple pieces at a time, and you're going to squeeze out the excess water so that they're damp but not dripping, and then place these into your bin. Now to set up for the ice dyeing, this is where you would want to add the rubber bands or string or relief clamps or anything else that you want to add. But I'm going to do this in a bundle system where I'm just kind of going to bundle everything into my sieve here and then add the dye and see what happens. You can be particular in the way that you lay these in, matching up your pieces, so stacking like pieces together and then putting them together as you add the dye, or just throw it all in there, kind of bundle it up and add the ice and the dye and see what happens. And that's part of kind of some of the fun of ice dyeing. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna pull these apart to find the individual pieces and then put them in. It helps to do a bit of a twist. So when you bundle them up, kind of twist them up, because if you put them in just flat, like, I'll show you what I mean. If you put them in just like this, so it's a flat piece, and you crumple it up like this, then you're likely to get dye color on certain areas, but there will be parts on the other side that don't get dye. And so if you want to mix up where the dye goes, you can open it up and kind of give it a little bit of a twist so you get both sides, or more of a texture to the fabric. And then you can put that in like so. And ice dyeing is all kind of an experiment, because every time you do it, it's different. The type of dye you use, the type of fabric you use, the way the pattern works out. You can't ever do the same thing twice, because it's all chance. So this pair of pants will never look like any other pair of pants because of just the technique of ice dyeing eliminates some of the ability to control. So if you want to control the look, this is probably not the technique you want to use. And I'm wearing gloves here just because the soda ash will dry out your hands, and then when you start working with the dye, it transfers to your hands and will stain your hands, so the gloves protect from that. And then this is all kind of smushed together, so I'm gonna open it up a bit and then re-smush it together. So there is all those pieces. Now we're ready to add the ice on top, and I like using a container that has a bit of a lip so that the ice can fit and totally cover. You can watch this video where I did a pair of IKEA curtains and I use a window screen, and that works perfectly well too. It's just harder to contain the ice on the surface of what you're working on. So pour in large chunks of, pour your ice on over top. And if you have large chunks of ice like this, you want to break them apart as much as possible. And the size of the ice you use will impact the way that the design turns out. Smaller bits of ice will spread the dye out a little bit more. Larger bits, just a little bit less. It's good to do this in an area where you can get things wet or have towels around, because you'll have ice everywhere. Or maybe I'm just messy. Okay, so the goal here is to cover all of the fabric with ice and try to cover any areas where the fabric is showing through. So like this area, the fabric's peeking through, so I just want to put a piece of ice on top of that, because wherever there isn't ice, you're either going to get really high saturation of dye because the dye will hit the fabric and that's where it will respond, or you won't get dye in that spot until you have more of a white spot in that area, which is totally fine if that's the look you're going for. I want mine to be pretty vibrant with color, or highly saturated, that is. So I'm going to make sure there's lots of ice on here. Now we're ready to use the dye, and again, put on your dust mask to use the dye because it's powder and you don't want to breathe it. A quick note, I'm using one color, and you can definitely just start with one color to see how the process works. You can also use multiple colors. You can check out this video where I did a couple baby clothes with lots of colors, and it ended up looking very kaleidoscopy, lots of bright colors, some deeper colors. So we got some interesting outcomes there. And the outcomes that you end up with depend on how the colors mix that you choose. So if you choose a red and a green, those mix and they turn brown. And so when you're piling that onto the ice, as it bleeds into the fabric and they mix, you'll end up with brown spots, which can be a cool look. If you want more vibrant colors, I would suggest using colors that mix well, so like blues and reds, because those mix into purples. Yellows and oranges will just make a brighter orange or more of a yellowy orange. Things like yellow and purple, they also make brown. So finding colors that mix well together, green and blue, turn teal, when you're starting out and learning how to dye mix, and then maybe exploring with more contrasty colors, because contrasting colors typically mix into a brown color. So I'm gonna put my mask on and just get to it. So open up your powder, and I'm gonna open this over my ice because it might spill out as you open it. And then use your teaspoon, tablespoon, whatever kind of spoon you're using, and begin to sprinkle the powder onto your ice. And now, as we talked about a little bit earlier, I'm hoping that this black, hot black, splits into multiple colors. And I can already see on my ice that there is some navy popping out and some reds popping out in the dye mix. And so hopefully that'll transfer to my fabric. So I'm gonna go over this and liberally apply dye over the ice, sprinkling it over all of it, because I want these pants to be pretty saturated with color. If you want lots of white space, or whatever color fabric you started out with to show through, then I would just do small spots of the dye around, because that will leave lots of white space. Typically, even if you do lots of dye over your ice, you'll still end up with white space because of the way it bundles, kind of like tie dyeing. The way you bundle for tie dyeing, you end up having wherever the pieces bunch together, that ends up as white space or lighter color. Okay, once you've applied the dye, you can take off your dust mask, and this is ready to go, meaning it needs to melt, and that can take up to a day depending on the temperature of your room or where you're at. You could speed it up by sticking it in a sunny or a hot spot, but allowing it to slowly bleed through helps the dye to activate into the fabric. Once this has completely melted, we'll come back and rinse out the fabric and then put it through a wash and dry cycle. But now you can sit back and just set this aside and watch the ice melt. I've removed the pants from the ice dye bath, washed and dried them so they're ready to be sewn. And I have they came out rather surprising. I have a lot of navy blue, which I guess I maybe should have expected, but is kind of a surprise. And there's some peachy yellow and some pinky reds, kind of mauve color in there as well. So I'll lay these pieces out and show you the outcome. Here's the different pieces. This one ended up with a lot of blue. And there's not as much diversity in these pieces as with other ice dye pieces because I used one dye color. So we can see where the dye color split and we got this variety of coloration. Like in here, there's some yellows and some red and the light blue and a little hint of green here and there. right here, green, and then lots of navy. And this one's interesting, got kind of a swirl effect. So it was an interesting experiment. Now I'll sew these pants up and then show you the finished result. So I've finished sewing these pants. You can see all of the different panels here came in. So have lots of the different colors showing up in the panels and the big pockets on the side, which are fun to have and to wear. And then I did these with a cuffed bottom. These are elastic cuffed bottom, and then the cuffed waistband as well. Thanks for watching how to ice dye a garment. You can do this process before you sew it like I did, or afterwards, and you would just fold the garment up in some way and then put the ice and the dye on top like you would the fabric. You would just bundle the garment up and put the ice and the dye on top of the garment like you would the fabric, but you will have to be a little bit more careful depending on whether you want the front or the back to have the most depth of color. Adding some twist will help even out getting color on both sides. If you just bundle it up like this, where the top is more visible or closer to where the dye will be coming through, then the top or the front, whatever side's facing up, will get the most density of color, and then the other side will be less vibrant, have less pigment to it. Be sure to check the description below for all the tools and materials I used in this process, and the Dharma Trading Company has lots of different colors of Procyon fiber reactive dyes, so check them out for the dyes that I used for this process. You can use any kind of fiber reactive dye. Just check the instructions on how to use this specific dye. Every company has a little bit different process that they suggest creating the best results from their dye. So check their instructions. I used Dharma Trading Company's instructions for these. Let me know in the comments below how your ice dyeing project goes. I'd love to hear what you ice dye, and I'll see you next time. Happy dyeing.